channel. I am Jasmine here at Bouquet, and I have something really exciting to share with you today. I have my own pattern being released. It is called the High Pumpkin Banner pattern, and this is what it is. It's a pattern to make your own pumpkin seasonal autumn hanging banner, and I am really excited about this. It is something that I have been working on and now ready to release the pattern. It is completely done and it's looking really good. So I'm gonna walk you through today how to make this hanging pattern. It is something that is really special to me. So if you can see, the pattern of the script is a little lost here on this print. That is why I am choosing another one to sew with you today. I have this one here, and it is on a little more subtle of a background. And I will be sewing with you this, this banner. And it is something that's really special to me. You can see here it says High Pumpkin. This banner has really special meaning to me. The message High Pumpkin is not just seasonal, but it's something that came to me that reminded me of a sweet memory that I have. We were out with the family and I overheard a dad refer to his child as Pumpkin. And you hear the word all over this season, but whenever it's referred to someone as a term of endearment, that doesn't happen very often. And so just the way, the tone that the dad had, for whatever reason, just sparked this memory of mine of whenever I was a child. And my dad used to call me Pumpkin, and it wasn't a seasonal thing. He would call me Pumpkin all the time. And for some reason, I had forgotten about it. So whenever I heard that dad, it just took me back. And memories are funny like that, you know, they'll take you back to a time of your past, or even a feeling or a situation, and then you'll just remember it. You'll remember all of it, and it all just came flooding back, and it was really sweet, and I'm really thankful that I had that memory. But it was something that I hadn't thought of in a really, really long time, since childhood. So it's a sweet memory. Like I said, my dad is no longer around. He did pass away, and he was very young. He never got to meet his grandchildren. My children don't know him at all. So I try to keep memories of him, pictures and stories of him alive, and I try to share that with my children. So I thought it would be really nice to have something to remember him by, to have something up on the wall, not necessarily a throw pillow or a quilt that might have to be replaced later on, or that might get some wear and tear, but something that I can have up on the wall to look at during the season. So that's why I made this hanging banner, and I think it's really sweet. I designed the shapes, I designed the script, and the entire design. So go ahead and go get your pattern. It is in my Etsy shop, and if you already have your pattern and you're ready to sew with me, we can get started now. So I'm just gonna hang this right behind me, right here, so we can have a little look at that while we sew. And I'm going to show you what I have here. So I have all my materials. I've got the front panel, I've got the backing and some batting. I got my white, warm and white cotton batting. And then I've got, of course, my pattern here. And it is a printable PDF. So whenever you get it, you will have to piece it together. And I recommend using some packaging tape, because I find that it holds better, it's clear, it doesn't allow the pattern to come apart whenever you're using it. So I really like using packaging tape. And then I've got my shapes. So I did design these, and they are printable. You'll be able to cut them out whenever you download the pattern. And you can even use these not just for the pattern, but you can use them for other things. Mug rugs, little mini quilts, pillows, quilts if you wanted. So these shapes come in handy, and they're really cute and very easy to use. So you want to get those ready. And then of course I've got my interfacing here. I really like a sheer weight interfacing that's fusible. But of course, if you like to make your shapes with a non-fusible interfacing, then that's awesome, and that works. If you only have one, use what you have. It's no big deal. I always go with whatever I have on hand. And then I've got my little cute fabrics that are going to be the pumpkin. So what I picked out is this adorable new line by Corey Yoder. and I hope I'm pronouncing that right, but they are by Moda Fabrics. And this is a really cute collection that just came out this fall. You can see that there are oranges, yellows, greens, even this type of teal here. These are not colors that I usually pick up. I usually don't get greens, yellows, and oranges. They're not my typical colors. Most fabrics that I pick up are usually a pink or a blue, but I didn't have what I needed for this pattern whenever I came up with the idea. I had to buy this 5-inch pack, and I'll go ahead and link the shop that I got them from down below. But I love this collection. I love this collection. The colors came out really nice. They're very versatile, and the oranges are not too bright. They're not too strong. So I have been using them here in my original banner, and then I have another stack here. So these are the ones that I pulled from the 5-inch stack, and I will be using these. I've got 3 for the pumpkin. So I got 3 for the pumpkin here. And since I already made a pumpkin, you can see that. Since I already made a pumpkin with green leaves, I'm going to make this one with these charcoal colors. So the leaves and the stem will be with this charcoal fabric. Of course, if you like the green, go with the green. I was thinking of going with a little bit of a different color scheme because I wanted something a little more modern. And I think the charcoal is really modern and it's very in style right now. So I'm going with that. And it can even be used maybe as a Halloween decor also. So that's something to think about. So that's what I'm using. I have 3 orange 5-inch squares. And then I've got 2 charcoal squares. And that's all you need for this pattern. It's pretty simple. 2 fat quarters, some batting, 5 little 5-inch squares for the shapes, and it's very easy. Of course, you are going to need a wooden dowel so that you can hang your banner. And then I went and I bought these Park Lane. They're circle wooden knobs, and they fit perfectly here on my wooden dowel. So this one is, I believe, 3/8 of an inch thick, and these fit perfectly. So I picked these up at my local craft store. If I can find them on Amazon, I'll link it to my storefront, which I have mentioned before. But if you don't know, I do have an Amazon storefront where I put items that I use in my videos or even on my Instagram or blog. And if there's any accessories or items that I'm using, I'm usually linking them there so you can easily find it. All right, and then I've got my hoop, of course. You're gonna need to embroider. So get your hoop, get your floss. You can have 2 colors. I recommend in the pattern using a green or charcoal, but go with the colors that coordinate with your fabric. Today, I will just be using the charcoal. All right, so I will put the green aside. And then I went ahead and I got my tassel loom. This is not in the pattern. It's not required for your little hanging banner, but, which it looks cute without tassels, but I really like tassels, and I just got this cute little tool. So I'm adding some here to my banner, the next one that I'll be making with you. And so I've got 2 little tassels here that I made, and they're really cute. They're really easy and fun. The loom is also on my Amazon storefront, so I'll set those aside. I've got my stitching press here for my tabletop. This is one that I've designed and made in my Etsy shop. Go and get one. They're very handy, portable, and easy to use on your surface, on your work surface. And with a project like this, you don't need a large ironing board out taking up space. That's just a mess. And then I've got my fuel here. So I've got my little latte, and we're ready to go. All right, so this is how we start. We have our pattern here. So you will be printing this out, like I said, and then piecing it together. What I did first is I traced the script onto my top fabric. And this is going to be the front of the banner. So I went ahead and I traced it using this pattern. You're gonna need this to get the right script. And so what I did is I traced it. You can use a light box, you can use a window, you can even use a door like this that has glass. So you could open it up and put a light behind it and tape your fabric there. That comes in handy. I actually have done that before with this cabinet. So yeah, you're gonna go ahead and you're gonna trace your script onto the front fabric. And then you're going to put an outline of, the entire pattern, this size. You're gonna put it on here so you can see I lightly put lines around as a gauge. And then I went ahead and I added tracing lines for the stem, embroidery, and an outline of the pumpkin shape, because I want to make sure that I'm putting everything in the right spot, and that is marked here on the pattern. It's very light here, so that is marked, and you will need that before going any further. Once I traced everything on, I went ahead and I added my interfacing to the back, because we don't want the fabric to scrunch up whenever we're embroidering. So I added the interfacing to the back. It's covering the area where the script is, where I traced that. And then it's gonna cover a little lower part here where you're going to be embroidering the stem stitches. So once you have that, add it to your hoop, and then embroider that. I did it ahead of time so I don't have to take up extra time here. But yeah, you're gonna want to take a moment to do that, and then come back here and we'll move on with the pattern. Okay, now that your script has been embroidered, we are ready to move on, so you can set this aside for later. Okay, so let's get started with the shapes. Now, I did cut these very crudely. I cut out little squares of the medium interfacing, and this is a little stiffer than the sheer weight that I used for the embroidering, because I do want my shapes to be a little stiffer. I want them to keep their shape, and I want it to hold better whenever I'm turning them out and using my turning tool. So that's why I have a little bit of a stiffer medium weight interfacing. Like I said, it can be fusible or non-fusible. This one is fusible because that's what I have. So I'm using what I have on hand. Use what you have on hand. No need to spend money on such small shapes unless you want to. So here I have my crudely cut shape of interfacing, and I did make sure that it's larger, that it's going to have an edge there, because we are going to trace this right onto our fabric and interfacing. And whenever we trace it on, we are going to make sure that we are sewing right on the line. Okay, so I made it easy. You can go ahead and trace it on here. Fabric and interfacing, right sides are facing. So whenever you trace this on, I have my water soluble fabric marking pen here. And it looks like it's running out right on time. All right, so you can see here the outline. It's pretty faint, but I'm going to pin this on. And like I said, I will be sewing right on that traced line. So make it simple. You can go ahead and sew right on there, and then you're going to cut it out. And you can cut it out before you sew or after, whichever you prefer. I like to cut it out afterwards. And make sure that you're leaving a 1/4 inch seam outside of the outline. All right, so I'm gonna stitch that up. I do like to use a shorter stitch length with these shapes, because whenever I'm turning them right side out, the shorter stitch does help to keep the shape a little better, so that whenever I'm using the turning tool, it's not getting stuck in between the stitches. So I do like to turn my stitch length down, and I'm gonna sew these together right on that line real quick. Okay, here we are. So this is all sewn up, and you can see I closed the entire seam. There are no gaps left open, and I did that for a reason. I don't want to have to worry about turning and putting a blind stitch into any gaps afterwards. So I'm going to cut this out, like I said, with about a 1/4 inch seam. That's looking a little smaller, but it's okay, it'll be fine. And I want to make sure that I'm not too close to that seam there. The only shape that I will not be closing the seam with is my pumpkin stem, this one right here, and that is indicated in the pattern. So be sure that, that you follow that. All right, so here's my first shape, and this is the main pumpkin shape here. You see that's all closed off. It's looking really nice. And I like to put little tiny incisions here, little cuts, so that whenever I'm turning my fabric, that the fabric doesn't pull and doesn't ruin or misshape the pumpkin. So I do add a lot of little slits. You don't have to do it what's most comfortable for you. If you're pretty confident in your fabric turning and your ability to get those curves right whenever you turn it, then that's great, and go with what you feel most comfortable with. I like adding a lot of these little slits. It's really helpful for me. All right, so now that that's done, I can go ahead and cut a little slit here. So I'm separating the fabric here from the interfacing. I want to make sure I'm not cutting into this orange print at all. All right, and I'm going to do it this way. Okay, so I'm cutting a slit here. And you want to make it big enough to turn the fabric out, but not so big that, that it's going to be, you know, really loose in the back. So I'm turning this out, lightly tugging. I don't want to rip that interfacing. It is medium weight, so it should hold pretty well, better than the sheer weight for sure, but I still don't want to rip it. Trying to be as careful as I can. And I'm just going to lightly push out the corners. If you have a turning tool, that's really great. It's going to come in handy for this. And I should probably go grab mine. I just have some wooden dowel. So you can see mine right here has a soft point. It's not real sharp. And then I also have this end here that I can use. So just lightly pushing these out. And I like to push on the fabric, not the interfacing, because that has a greater chance of ripping through. So I'm lightly pushing on the fabric. It's coming out pretty good. I love using shapes. I think applique is so cute. I like the curves that you're able to get with applique that are not really possible. Not so much with quilt block piecing. And I like that with this pattern specifically, that once all the shapes are put together, that they're kind of layered and it looks like there's more dimension to the pumpkin. So you're going to get your pieces, and I'm going to work on these. But afterwards, here I have my my stitching press here and my mini iron. So after they're all turned out, I gently go over just the edges. Since my interfacing is fusible, I don't really want these to fuse together right now. I just want to get the basic shape down. And running a light iron over it, it's not going to fuse together yet. With this type of fusible interfacing, you do have to hold it there longer. So you can see here, it's got a light iron. It's not really sticking yet. And it looks really good. The shape's coming out really nice. So, and of course my stitching press is really handy. I love it. So my other fabrics here, these are going to be paired, and they're going to go in the center and on the sides of the pumpkin, like that. Oh, there it is. Like that. So I have 3 different colors that I use from the pumpkin. You can use all the same if you'd like, if you like that style. I like the patchiness and a little bit of that country vibe with the multiple fabrics. So I'm going to sew all of these shapes together, and then I'm going to turn them right side out, and I will be right back. So here I have the leaf, and it's traced. I just sewed the stitch around it, And you can see that this shape is not symmetrical, and all the lines are not clean. I designed this leaf with the intent of making it a little more organic, and the shape of a pumpkin leaf is more curled and it goes in different directions. Really beautiful shape with a nice wide leaf, and so that's what I drew inspiration from. And so you'll see that these curves are all different around the leaf shape, and I really like that. I think it came out really cute in the original design that I made. And so you are going to have to snip into these corners here, and I like to do a little bit more than just one because I don't want it restricted at all. I don't want to restrict the shape at all whenever it is turned. And you can remove those little pieces. You can cut them out and remove them, or leave them in, whatever you feel comfortable with. I do like to remove just a little bit of that excess fabric there, being careful not to cut into the seam, of course. And then around the hard edges or curves here. And I think that helps whenever you're turning it right side out. I really like the shape of this leaf. It's not perfectly shaped, it's just more organic, like I said. And I thought that would be really pretty. All right, so once I got all my snips in, you don't even have to do it on those edges. I just do out of habit, honestly. All right, so then you can cut into the interfacing and turn it out. And you are gonna have to kind of work those edges. They're a little bit more complicated than the other one. You can see they're a little more complicated than the other shapes. The other shapes are pretty simple and round, as you can see. There's really no difficult curves or edges there. But this little leaf has a lot more going on. Probably more detailed than it needed to be, but like I said, I really wanted that look of the curvy pumpkin leaves. Okay, here we are with all of our shapes. We have 4 pieces for the pumpkin here. And so what we're gonna do is we're going to grab our front fabric piece, the one that you've already embroidered on. So here it is. You can see it here. And like I said earlier, I did draw an outline of the pumpkin here, and it's very faint. I did not need a lot of markings because I know how the pumpkin is supposed to be laid out. But of course, add as many markings as you need. The pattern has more details than what is being shown here. So right below, right here where the embroidery of High Pumpkin is, there are some squiggly lines. These are our stem lines that we will be embroidering. And they're also helping as a guide of where the leaf and the stem will be. So what I start with first is the stem right here. I am going to put this here, and it's right center of the entire fabric panel. Now you can choose how to attach this. What I did is I just used pins, but if you have fabric glue that you like, or some type of adhesive, some type of tape that you want to add behind your shapes, you can definitely do that, and it keeps it in place while you are structuring your pumpkin here. All right, so I have my stem here, and then I'm going to add my leaf here, and it is kind of to the side. It's kind of angled, tilted a little. So I have that there, and I'm gonna pin it. And so this part of the project is really up to your own discretion. You can applique, and by that I mean you can sew them on a machine or by hand. I like to use an applique, a blind stitch by hand to sew these on. And so you could put them on now and applique them one by one, or you can stack your entire pumpkin as is what I do. So I have my stem, I have my leaf, and then right here I have guiding lines of where this piece should be. And I cover this bottom edge of the stem because this is a raw edge. It's not sewn at all. It's open. So I'm going to add this here where the guides are and make sure that that's all centered. Okay. So that's looking good. Okay, so you can see here that I have the stem, the leaf, and the main pumpkin shape here. And let me just make sure this is all straightened out. But you don't want to applique this orange pumpkin piece on just yet, because we will be doing more with the entire pumpkin. So these pieces here, they will be going on the sides, and there's one on this side, and you will be tucking them under this main pumpkin. So I have my guiding lines there. I will be tucking them underneath the mane, as you can see. Oh, see, those pins are already getting in the way. So if I had appliqued this down, then I wouldn't be able to tuck in these side pumpkin shapes. You see that? It's looking really good. Okay. So I'm gonna pin this down. At this point, you can definitely start appliquing. I like to wait until the very end whenever my entire piece is all on the fabric. So we're gonna layer this on top also. And there's a guiding line down there. All right. So now that everything's in place, now I'm gonna start appliquing. And like I said, I use a blind stitch. It's also very similar to, if you're a quilter, your binding stitch that you add your binding to your quilts with. And I think that looks pretty good. What do you think? It's pretty cute, right? All right, so I'm gonna applique this. Okay, here we are. So I have my embroidery done. I have all my pieces appliqued, and I'll show you right here that I had started here with this middle piece. I went all the way around, and then I went to the next layer and the next layer, all the way around until everything was appliqued down, and then I went up around the stem, and then I added the leaf right after. So it's coming out really nice. I like how it looks. It's nice and puffy still. I like that puffiness after you applique the shapes on. I think it's so cute. And so now it's time to go ahead and add, if you don't already have the markings here, you can lightly see that I have some markings here. These are the little curly stem pieces, and then here on the leaf there will also be some embroidery markings, and you can see on the original pattern they are marked here. You can see that. You may need to retrace it or freehand it if you feel comfortable, and I'm going to go ahead and do that here. I know the shape overall of what I want, and so I'm gonna go with this, and then I'm going to add it back to my embroidery hoop. And I mentioned earlier that usually I would do this with a green embroidery floss, but I am using the gray. So I'm going to match to the charcoal fabric here, and I'm gonna go ahead and use this gray one. So I have my needle here, and I'm gonna add my hoop. And this comes together really easily. I think this whole project could be done in a day if you have the time to sit and embroider. So I'm going to add that quick embroidering, and I'm just using a simple stem stitch. I like that thicker stem stitch because it looks a little bit more, it looks a little thicker and a little more bold, and then it kind of has like a curliness to it, which I want for this little curly edge here of the stem. So I'm gonna do that real quick. And what I did with this embroidering up here is I only used 3 of the threads of this floss. So I cut my floss to the right size, and then I pulled out 3 of them. I personally don't really use thicker more than 3 at a time because I feel like it's already really thick and it's hard to pull through the fabric at that point. So I like to separate mine by 3. And so let me see, here they are. And that's what I'm going to use for these little curlies and the leaf details. And like I said, it comes together super quick. So if you are familiar with embroidering, it is the stem stitch. If not, you can definitely look that up. It's really simple. And I'll show you a few stitches here. So let's see. I just tie my end off this way. Well, not usually that way, but you get it. All right, so right here, I'm gonna start right under the stem, this gray stem here. I'm sorry if the camera's a little off. I'm kind of sewing at an angle because I'm trying not to bump into the camera too much. Hopefully it's nice and clear so you can see. All right, so I'm gonna make kind of long stitches. They don't need to be too small. And then I'm gonna go back to the center of that stitch right there. And then I'm gonna just sew next to it. And I'm gonna go a little further each time. And then I'm gonna go back to the center of that one, and I'm kind of pushing them to the side so you can see. And I hope that's clear enough. So very simple. I go back to the center. I'm sorry, the middle of that last stitch. And I'm following my little guides here. So let's see, this is coming out really good, you see. And we have one more little line of embroidering here. And I'm gonna tuck it in behind. There we go. And this is coming out really well. It is coming together very quickly. So it is a really nice, easy project, especially if you're looking for something seasonal that doesn't take very long or is just a small make. Everyone's really busy during this time of year, so I myself am looking for easier projects to do. Of course, not orders or anything business-like, but just to enjoy for my own sewing. I'm looking for easy projects myself. All right. And I like how this stitch is coming out. It's nice and thick. And it really is perfect for the stem here. And the leaves, because it adds that detail. It's got that curving effect, which is just like the stems. So I really like this one. That one went a little astray. It's okay. And I don't embroider often. It's not, although I really enjoy it, it's not something that I typically pick up patterns for, but I do like being able to add script to my projects. And I love the way it looks. It makes everything look custom. So I really like this. I hope you guys are enjoying this. All right, so we're all done with our hand stitching. We have our applique pieces on. We have our pumpkin. We have all the embroidering. So we're ready to assemble. Looks really great. All right, I even straightened this out. I had to pull out my ruler to make sure that it was straight, even though I had the guidelines around. I wanted to make sure it's all straightened out before I went any further, so I'm glad I did that. All right, so you can take your hoop off, and then we're gonna go ahead and start assembling. All right, so now that we're all done with the applique and the embroidery, it should look like this. You're able to trim off the ends using the pattern piece that is the main banner outline. Oops, sorry. The main banner outline. So your front panel should now be all cut to size, and also your batting and your backing piece. And I just picked a plain white for my backing. It really doesn't matter what the backing looks like. No one's gonna see it, so I wouldn't use any special fabrics for it unless you have plans to hang it somewhere where it's gonna be seen on both sides. So all 3 of them are now cut to size. And what I like to do is I like to sandwich my pieces with the top panel right next to the batting, because I want the top panel to look a little chunkier on the edges whenever we turn it inside out. I don't want it to be the flatter end. So I'm going to put it right next to the batting, and then I'm going to sandwich the backing fabric right sides facing on top of my front panel. Okay, so that is the backing, the front panel, and then the batting. All right, so we're all set. Should look like this, and I'm going to pin my pieces. Because there's batting, there is a very big chance of the fabric shifting. So I'm definitely gonna pin mine. And like I said in other videos, I like to pin my projects from the inside out. So my needles are pointing outside instead of in. And I do that for a reason. I feel like I get a flatter edge whenever I am doing it that way. I don't get as much fabric shifting. You can see right here my pins. I don't get as much fabric shifting whenever I do it that way because I'm pressing down on the fabric. So you can see, I'm pressing down on the fabric and then I push out. So there's not as much bunching trying to push it into the whole design. And I really like that. It gets a much flatter sew, much flatter seams. And so I have had much success with it. So I'm sticking to it. It might break the rules a little, but that's just what I do. And I'm all for, if you find a way to make your projects that's more comfortable for you, even if it breaks all the rules, go with it. The whole point of this is not to make everything right, but to have fun sewing, right? That's the whole craft. If it's no fun, no one's gonna wanna do it. If you don't feel comfortable, your projects are not gonna come out nice. So that is what I do. I'm pinning all the way around because, like I said, those extra layers are going to make some bunching in my machine. Unless you add a quilting foot. I'm not gonna add a quilting foot today. That is a lot of work. All right, I'm just about there. We are going to sew around the seam, and we're doing a 1/4 inch seam all the way around except the top. I'm gonna leave that part open because that is the area we use to turn it inside out. So here I am. And I usually just use the foot of my machine as my guide. I don't use the 1/4 inch guide on my machine because it's usually too big, and somehow my projects, my seam is still a little short there. Somehow my projects end up shrinking whenever I use the 1/4 inch guide on my machine. So I don't use that. And I don't know if you can tell, but whenever I use my pins going from the inside out, I usually get a much flatter pin, and I don't have to worry so much about my pins getting caught by the foot of the machine. So I usually just slowly go over them. I know I'm a huge rule breaker, that's just what I do. With this machine, they have yet to get caught, and I've sewn a lot on this so far. It's been pretty good. So whenever I'm turning my fabrics on the corners, I do backstitch because there is the risk of those corners possibly getting ripped whenever I'm turning my fabric and then pushing the corners out. So I always backstitch my corners. Always is probably a really strong word. More often than not, I backstitch my corners. And I like that extra security. I like knowing that whenever I'm pushing my corners out, that my fabrics are not going to give way, they're not going to go through, and they've got a nice strong double stitch there. So that's what I do. I'm really excited to have this out. I have been working on this for a couple months now. I was like ready to take a baseball bat to my computer because I was so frustrated. buy all the tech things. I am not a techie person. Thankfully, I have my husband. He's pretty good with tech, but he was the one that had to kind of take over and help me out with my computer with all the issues we were having. And then I was able to get this pattern done. It was seriously concerning me that I wasn't going to be able to finish this before Thanksgiving. I'm cutting it close, I know, but I hope that it's still a pattern that you will enjoy and that you'll be able to sew up yourself. Even if you're not able to sew it up this year, that you'll have it for next year, and that maybe it'll remind you of a sweet nickname by your family member, or pretty and festive, and that it's something that you'll be able to use for a long time, you know, there on the wall. I like banners, I like bunting on the walls. I think they're so festive and they're easily to change out. I don't have to worry about it being up long term. It's just an easy, quick put up and take down at the end of the season. And that's why I like these so much. So I just pressed mine right here on my stitching press, and then I'm going to cut the corners. And you don't have to do this. Some people like rounded corners. Whenever I trim mine, they're still not super straight and angular. I do kind of like rounded corners, but I just try to take off the extra bulk so it's not so difficult whenever I am pressing it around later on. So I'm gonna stick my hand in and turn the whole thing out. It's super easy, a quick, easy turn. After all those little shapes, right? That's very much welcomed. Those little shapes, especially that leaf. It'll test you for sure. But I still love doing those appliques. I plan to have more shapes because I really enjoy sewing them, and I think they're really, really cute and fun on anything. All right, so here we are. You can use your turning tool. I have mine here. It's got a blunt edge. It's not very sharp, so I'm just lightly turning it out. I'm not pushing real hard because, like I said, I do kind of like corners that are a little rounded. I don't like them super straight. If you do, keep working those corners until they're exactly what you want. And mine are looking pretty good, so you can see right there. All right. And just to get an even flatter press whenever I am sewing something, I like to soak my edges. My seams, I do soak them. And so I have my little water bottle here with clean filtered water. I have stopped using the I've stopped using the iron for spraying or misting or even steam, and that is because in the past I have had my projects, quilts, whatever fabric I'm using, completely ruined by the steam or sediment that's built up inside of my irons, and that has been with multiple different irons. So I have stopped doing that. I know that this mini iron here can hold water, yes, and it has a steaming function, and I'm sure it works great, but I'm not in that risk-taking mood anymore. I have had too many projects completely ruined by my irons. So I use a spray bottle, so there's no risk. All right, so whenever I soak my seams, I have a better grip on them. And so I like to make sure that that I have a nice grip, and then that I roll them out so that I'm getting a really, really clean iron and seam, because it kind of drives me nuts whenever the seams are not completely pushed out. So having that extra grit whenever the fabrics are wet really helps to hold on to the fabric a little better, and I really like that. I'm really happy with how this came out. Whenever I was pulling the fabric for this second banner, I was looking for something that was warm and a cozy print, but that wasn't really flashy, and I needed it to go along with these Corey Yoder fabrics, these pretty oranges. And I pulled this light, it's like a light cream wheat color with this pretty little white orange peel design on it. and I pulled it out and thought, oh, that's perfect. The colors go so well together. So I will be adding a seam all the way around, lining the entire banner. And that is going to be also a 1/4 inch seam, a little thicker than my other seams. I am going to follow the guide on the sewing machine because I do like that thicker line going around. And since I don't have my quilting foot on, what I do is just add a little bit of pins going all the way around. That way my fabric is staying in place and I can see if there's any bunching, because the guide of the pins will show me if any of it is starting to bulk up whenever I sew. That way I don't have it shifting around and getting creased as it sews. I can control it a little better. So I'm adding all those around. And I love the way this is coming out. I hope you're enjoying how your banner is coming out. And maybe even using your pumpkin shapes for other projects. I definitely plan to use mine for at least a mug rug. I think that would be really cute. I don't have a pumpkin mug rug. I like to have something in my schoolroom whenever I am teaching the girls. I usually have a drink or two with me, and so that would be really cute on my desk, having a little seasonal mug rug. So using these shapes comes in handy for lots of different projects, not just this banner. I hope to make more in the future. I would really like to share some other projects that I've made. In the past, I wasn't ready to make patterns, and I really was not sure of myself as far as being a creative individual. I still kind of doubted that I could teach anybody how to make or remake what I've made, but it's not that big of a deal. And now that I have a little better understanding of the mechanics of making a pattern on the computer, it's something that's definitely doable. And if it's something you've been wanting to do, go for it. There's always room for more patterns, more creativity. And I know me as a sewing or a quilter, I am always looking for new patterns. It's just fun. It's part of the fun, right? So I am going to lower my stitch length to about 2.5. I'm not sure what your machine gauge is at, but I usually keep my machine at a 3, which is a longer stitch. Having a 2.5 is just a little shorter, not too small. And I'm going all the way around. If I do see a little bit of bunching, I readjust my foot and I might pull out my pins so that there isn't like a stark crease there. But it's doing pretty well overall. Getting that nice, getting those edges pulled out whenever I soak and press them really well, that really helps a lot so that there's not as much bulking whenever you're sewing. My edges come out much nicer and flatter. And at the edges, since my corners are not exactly sharp corners, they're a little rounded, I follow the edge of my project. So if they're a little round, I might add a little turn to my stitch, and it just follows the line. It doesn't have to be perfect, but if you follow the line of your project, it's gonna look really nice and it's gonna look like it was meant to be that way. So that's what I do. Add a little bit of a curved stitch at the bottom where those angles are. It brings a little softness to it too, which I think is nice and warm whenever you're looking at a project, so that there's not really harsh angles, depending on what it is, of course. A quilt, whenever you're doing the corners of a quilt, they just have to be those right angles. They have to be. Otherwise, it looks really sloppy. All right, so this is coming out really good. If you already have your lining done, get your dowels ready. Your dowel, I do have 2 knobs on the end of the dowel that I'm going to be using to hang this little banner. And I think it looks really cute with or without it. You don't need the knobs if that's not what you have. but I saw them whenever I was at the store and I thought I better get these, and I'll go ahead and link where I found them. That company that makes them, Park Lane, I think they are so creative and they come out with really, really cute products. I really like their, even though I don't scrapbook anymore, I love their paper products. Super cute, great designs. It makes me want to be a scrapbooker again, but I'm like, I can't leave quilting and I can't add a whole nother section of crafts to my house. It's just already, it's already a lot. Okay, so I got this nice edge here and I think it looks really good. So the reason that I did not quilt this banner is because I like the cleanness of it, that it's really simple and that it focuses more on the shapes here. So you can see that the edges, they look really neat and they look a little chunky. I like that. It looks really intentional. So, and I've got my edges there. They're a little bit rounder. I'm gonna press everything down because that's what I do. I like to press every single seam. It just tightens it and it sets everything really nicely. And I heard that that's a rule, right? Like you're supposed to set your stitch. That's one of the rules I follow. Not everything, but that one, yes. I'm really crazy about ironing, which is funny that now I make the stitching presses. It's like, well, that's, of course I do, because I've always been crazy about ironing everything. All right, so here it is. And we're going to add the top seam, which is gonna pull the whole project together. So the pattern does have 2 lines at the top. We have not used those yet. Now is the time to do it. We're going to add the first at the top, and that's where we're going to be creasing our banner. We're gonna fold it and we're gonna iron it out. Like I said, I'm crazy about ironing. I like those nice straight creases. So I always have my spray bottle around and I'm just going to do this. I know my measurements. If you don't know the measurement, go ahead and trace it onto your piece from the pattern. And I'm going to iron this, get it as flat as possible, because this top edge is going to be visible whenever we're sewing. So we want this one really neat and straight. If you got to get your ruler out, and I have mine right here. This is my favorite ruler. It is the Olippa or Olipfa. Ooh, Olipfa. It is the whole yard ruler and it's 4 inches wide. All right, so I've got to make sure I have the right measurement. Yep, looks good. And then we're going to take it down to the second line that is on the pattern. So I know my measurements here. I'm going to pull out my ruler and I'm just going to gauge where it should be. So I'm kind of pushing down on my pattern so I have a little line crease there. You can see my crease. And that's where I'm going to fold. Okay. And then I'm gonna, of course, steam it again with a little spray. And I really like this mini iron. I have 2. Before I got this Oliso Home mini iron, I was using a generic brand from Amazon, and I do still really like it. It's got a smaller grip, and I'll show you right here. So here it is. It's smaller. It's more compact. You can see that the size difference here. It's much smaller. It's very strong. It's got a nice heat setting. I like that I can wrap the cord around here. But this one is a little lighter than the Oliso iron, which I like the weight of this. I like it a lot because this one sometimes I felt like I had to put more pressure just to get the right press. But the Oliso is pretty heavy. For the size, it's pretty heavy, and I like that because I need it to push down as much, and I don't have to use as much pressure, so that's nice. Of course, it also has the stand, which is great. I typically don't lay my iron down. I like it standing. I feel like I don't know, I just grab it easier. It's just my own thing. All right, so this is looking really straight. I've got my folds and they're going to the back. And this is what we're going to be sewing down so that we can add the dowel through here. Now you do have to be careful that your wooden dowel does not have a thick end, because we want to make sure that it's going to be able to slide through once this is sewn. So let me grab mine. Oh, here it is. Sorry, it slipped off the table. All right, so mine is small enough that it's going to be able to slide through whenever it's done. But if yours has knobs on the end or some type of feature there, this iron, it's making me hot. Okay, so whenever you want to make sure that before you sew it down, that you are able to slide yours through. If you need to add it now, go ahead and do that during this step so that you can take it to the sewing machine with your wooden dowel already inserted. But I don't need to, so I'm going to sew it without. And I'm going to be sewing it upside down. So I'm going to be looking at the back edge at my machine here. And I am going to turn up the length of my stitching because there are multiple layers. So I know that whenever I turn it up to a longer length and there are multiple layers, that it does kind of shrink down. And that is just my machine. So gauge your machine, see if you need to do the same. And I will be following along the crease there at the bottom. And this is a lot of material for the machine to go through, so take it slow if you need to. I don't have any pins in here. I think it'll be just fine. But if you see your fabric starting to shift or bulk up, adjust the foot and it should be just fine. My machine's really strong. I love this Juki. I think it's one of the best on the market for the price range. And I got it, I think I got it last year during all the shutdowns. So it's been a huge blessing to me. I love it. I felt really spoiled whenever I got it because I felt like I was upgrading, and it is. It's a huge upgrade. I was trying to sew denim with my other machine and it couldn't handle it. The engine couldn't handle it. It kept giving out, and I'm just adjusting my fabric because it is starting to bulk up there. So this one can take denim or anything thick like this, like a breeze. It's just such a strong engine. All right, so that's the last seam. We just finished the entire banner. So this is all done. You can trim off your little excess. And I've got my little snips here. And it looks really good. I love it. I hope you love yours, that it's come out just as nice or nicer. And I can slide my dowel in here. Alrighty. And then I've got, let me see, I've got my little wooden knobs. Like I said, they're from Park Lane, and I'll add the link below. I got them right here, and I need my string, which I left at 6,000. It's very strong. Don't get it on your fabric. Be careful. But this will hold really well, and I can feel it already getting tacky there. So I'm tucking in the ends, and that's going to make it nice and secure. And then I got my other knob here. And this is the last step. We're all done. Completely done. And you can add some beading to the edges. You can tie off or string some little beads at the end. I'm gonna add my cute little tassels that I went ahead and made. I have this dark green, which is really pretty. And it's kind of like a fuzzy yarn, if you can see. So I made that little tassel last night. And then a tiny little cute one. I wasn't even sure if I was gonna use this, but might as well, I have them. So I'm gonna add them both. I'm gonna stagger, let me see. I'm gonna stagger them with the smaller one a little higher. And then I'm gonna tie them to one of the ends. And I think since the leaf is here, I'm gonna balance it by adding this heavier color on this side. I'm gonna put them both on one side because I like that look. Like I said, I like bunting, I like banners and hanging cute things for the season. So I'm gonna add them all to one side. And I think it's really cute. And I'm just gonna do a simple tie, nothing fancy. You can do a bow if you'd like, but the cuteness, the focus is the tassel itself. So I'm not gonna add too much here at the top. You can add all kinds of things, honestly. You can add ribbons, bows. You can even add little shapes, like if you made extra little shapes out of fabric, you could do that. And it looks really cute. And I'm gonna cut this off here. And there we go, that's my banner. It's all done. So there's no green fabric here, but there are little bits of green in the pumpkin patterns here. And I think it's gonna pick that up really cute, really nicely. So I'm all done. And now I have 2 of these really cute banners. And I hope you enjoyed making these with me. I hope that I see yours posted soon. These are different looks with different fabrics. This one has this really cute floral print, and I think it's part of the community collection by Citrus and Mint. And then of course these fabrics here and the pumpkin are Corey Yoder. They are getting a little lost in there with all the flowers, but in person it stands out pretty well. So I hope you enjoyed this and that you share your really cute banners with me, and that you support my shop. My Etsy shop has the banner pattern, and it also has my lovely stitching presses, which I use daily on every project I make. And go check them out. And I hope that you'll be following me. Give this video a thumbs up. I hope you enjoyed it and that it was helpful to you. And I will see you next time with more fun. Bye.